Namaste, yogis. Welcome back to the Business Corner. And today we have a special guest, Shannon Crow. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Shannon Crow is the host of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. She trains teachers in prenatal and pelvic health, and she also works as a consultant for yoga teachers around profit and business marketing. Today we're talking about some tips for making your website more interesting to your students. So welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. I'm really excited to dive into this topic. So let me know kind of where you want to begin with it.
Absolutely. So I would love to know, first of all, most everybody that I know, let's talk with tools first. So if somebody's getting started with a yoga website, what should they be using to create that website with?
Right. So even before they go to create a website, I think it's super important that we start to look at the why behind the website. So what is it that you would like to offer to people? And I see websites offering two main things. One is kind of like a virtual business card. So it basically says who you are, what you offer, and how people can connect with you. If you think of a business card, it used to always, some people still use business cards, have their phone number, their email, and like a channel. It opens up a channel of communication between that person and whoever is looking up the website.
I've seen websites like that too, where it's almost sort of like the online version of a brochure.
Yeah. And so that's the type of website that would just sit there and you wouldn't have to add a lot to it. I mean, you have to still update things as you go, like events and different things like that, but it's not one that you're updating every week. So I think the other thing is to look at, well, I want to share things with people on a regular basis, and we'll get a little bit more into that. And so you want a place to host those things.
Like a blog or something like that.
Exactly. A blog, videos, images, those sorts of things. But even before that, before like diving right into a website, I would say play around a little bit. So an easy way to try this on is to create a Facebook business page. So it's sort of the same thing. You get to have your contact information there, some images, your information of, say you're a studio, then you'd have hours or that sort of thing. And then you can start to put content on there if you want to share on a regular basis. So maybe you want to share something that you did in your classes or a question that you have or a book that you're reading as a yoga teacher. And that's a great place to kind of try it on. Like, what does it feel like to create content on a regular basis for my audience? And then if you decide, okay, I really do want to go ahead with a website, there are so many bonuses. You own the website, like someone else owns Facebook. So it could all change, which we recently have seen with Facebook Live videos and all kinds of things. People are getting upset with social media, but you have to remember it's a free platform. So you sort of get what you pay for. So the next step is to, once you decide that you want a website, I like to plan it out on paper and really take a big picture look at what it is that you want to visually create. So it might be the homepage and what are the elements that you want on there. So let's say you're a yoga teacher and you teach at a studio or maybe a few studios, and you want to let people know when and where your classes are. So you can see that right away, your goal is to get people into your classes. You want that to be right on the homepage. So you can start to draw it out on paper. Because no matter if you're making the website yourself or you're hiring someone to do it, you need to have this plan. And for me, it's so much easier to do it on paper. Some people might do it on in a Google Doc, but it's really to start to map it out, especially if you're going to hire someone else to do it.
You can also, I've done those in PowerPoint where I sort of create, I call it a wireframe, but just basically sort of, here's how many pages there will be, here's how they're going to lay out.
Yeah. Another great thing that I love to use if I'm helping someone to map out a website. So I used to help design websites. I don't do that anymore. I help people with all of the stuff that comes before it, is to use sticky notes. And I do it on my windows, because if you imagine that you have this pack of sticky notes and you can write your menu titles, and then you can have drop downs. If you decide to do drop downs, you can move them around while you look at it for a week or two. Okay, so I just want to say, while you start to do that planning, here's the biggest thing that I see happen. Anyone, this isn't just yoga teachers, they think, well, I want to offer a retreat, therefore I'm going to put a retreat button on my website, and then it'll say coming soon.
Right. With the little builder man under construction.
I'm always like, don't do that. Like, it gets me nowhere. Now, if it was like, I could sign up for the waiting list and I'll get emailed when the retreat's happening, maybe then put it on there. But I would say to really only put the offerings that you have ready to go on your website. It's like going to the library and they say, here's a brand new book. It's coming soon. It's not here yet. I mean, it's just be annoying, right?
Yeah.
So then we start to look at what the next thing that holds people back is the tech side. Like, what do I go with? Do I go with WordPress, or do I go with something like Wix or Weebly or Squarespace?
Yeah.
So I don't know what you call these two categories.
I think one's more of a website builder, where it's more, you have fewer skills. And so it's sort of drop and drag building. And then WordPress is a little more, it's not exactly a programming language, but it's certainly a more robust way to build things. There's a lot of add-ons, and the Wix and Squarespace, they're more constrained in their functions, and it's easier to get started with those.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen some beautiful sites done on Wix, Weebly, and Squarespace. Now, I sometimes feel like I can be a website snob. Like, I love WordPress. I love that there are different plugins and options, and I like that tech side of things. Not everyone likes that. Like you said, some people just want the drag and drop version of things. I feel like I found the drag and drop in WordPress. So I use WordPress with the Divi theme. It's made by a company called Elegant Themes. I've played around with a lot of different themes. And if already you're like, oh gosh, what's she talking about? Then maybe, the option of the Squarespace, the Wix, or the Weebly is the place to start. Or maybe that, but if you eventually want to build out and add videos and a membership site and, different options to your site, then you might start to look at WordPress for sure.
Yeah, I think if a shortcut way of saying that is, if you're more comfortable with technology and stuff, then WordPress is probably where you're going to want to go, because you're going to have more options. But then if opening your email is about the level of your skill, then Wix, Squarespace will get you a nice looking functional website. In fact, I just saw this guy who's like a major graphic designer. He does installations in museums, and they're beautiful. This is his job. He had his website on Squarespace.
Yeah, I know a podcaster who has lots of tech knowledge. That, just to clarify, I said tech knowledge, but I was saying
tech knowledge.
Steph Crowder of Courage and Clarity, and she has been podcasting for 2 years, and she hosts everything on Squarespace, and her website looks great. And it's like, what is going to work for you? So the other thing to think about, maybe one of the cons of having a WordPress site, is that you also need a host. So you need someone who's kind of hosting all of your online data and all of your, your images, your information, your files, basically. Whereas if you sign up for Squarespace, I'm pretty sure that's all included in that. So
I believe that Squarespace, it does include the hosting. So the hosting is the storage. It actually physically stores the files.
Mm-hmm. With the host, I think it's really important to look at, if you're starting to look at hosts, they usually have a deal to kind of get you in with them. And it looks really It doesn't look very expensive.
1 year, $12.
Yeah.
Next year, they jump the price up to $100 a year, and you're like, what?
Yes. So to factor that in as well, I am not sure how it compares with Squarespace, but that'd be a great thing to look at as well in terms of what do they offer. Now, I went with Fat Cow is my host, and I have looked at Bluehost, and I know that they are similar. They are like sister companies, or Bluehost owns Fat Cow, something like that. They're definitely connected. And the one thing I would look for in terms of if you're looking for a host is someone who offers you security. That's the one thing is to look out for. And then there are hosting, there's like another level up for hosting would be someone who's taking care of your backups and doing that for you. So if you're growing and you have a lot of content on your website, and it's if you have high traffic to your website as well, you might start to look at a little step up from that, which I think a good company to look at is something like Flywheel.
Okay. So basically, I think, there's levels of hosting. And again, you can start with the easy kind of simple builders like Wix and Squarespace. And then you can do something more like Fat Cow, where there's a little just more function. And then ultimately, if you start to have a more sophisticated website, that's when you hire a web manager who actually knows what they're doing.
Some sites have to be customized and exactly that. So here's kind of the breakdown. It's like somebody has to host your files, whether it's Squarespace or it's a company who hosts WordPress sites. So you need a host, and then you have to decide what's kind of the framework of your website. And so if you thought of buying a car and like the frame of the car is your Squarespace or WordPress, and they're very different. And then the themes that you do and the things that's kind of like the paint color on the car, how it looks like. We don't really get to see the frame of it, but sort of it's the bones of it. I don't know if that helps, or if you can think of it like interior design. So then you start adding things on. And so with WordPress, there are different tools that you can use as well. Those are called plugins. And whereas something like Squarespace would have those built in. So I feel like we've gone really techie, but I think if that's scary to people, then they just need to book with someone who gets excited about that kind of stuff.
Or just message me or you and kind of go, hey, like we're totally willing to help people out with that stuff. It's not, once you get into it, then you don't need your hand held once you create the account and you can see what's there. And it's not so confusing. I think people they don't know where to start. I think like Wix, you can do some beautiful things on that. And if you're not sure where to start, I just say go to that. Like it doesn't make that big of a difference. The most important thing is that you have something there. We all kind of dreamed of something so beautiful, but people can't find what isn't there.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some amazing sites that are basically like black and white text, and that's it. So it really is about how your content shows up. So we can get into that a little bit if you want to. Yeah,
I'd like to talk about what you should have on your website. And we talked a little bit about what you shouldn't have on your website. And so, I feel like, okay, don't show people something that you don't really have to offer. But what should you start with as a yoga teacher? Do you want to start with that about page where you're explaining who you are? You said that if they have courses, like how long are people actually, what do people do on a website? Like how long are people going to stay there? And what'll make them want to spend a little more time there?
This is such a good question. People have a very short attention span. So when you start designing your site, it can be very tempting to start at the homepage because that's the first thing that people see. And we have about 3 seconds to catch their attention and get them clicking around, looking around on the website. But instead, I would say start with your contact page. So that's a really easy one. If people want to contact you, and this is if you want people contacting you, So if you don't want to get emails from people, say you're an author and you just want to focus on writing and you don't want people emailing you, then you would not put your email address on your content page. If you don't want people calling you or texting you, then you won't put that there. So maybe we want people connecting with us on our Instagram account. We really have to think like, what is the purpose behind that page, so that when someone clicks on contact, they can see various options of how they can reach out to us. And what would you like to see on a contact page? I like to see a photo of the person I'm contacting, not very much information, and then just how I can simply reach out to them. The next thing that I think I would go to for yoga teachers specifically is that calendar, schedule, the offerings. To look at that and to list them out. So sometimes teachers are like, well, I want to offer this or I want to do this. And we just come back to, what do you currently have? What could someone get onto your website and sign up for today if they saw the name, the description, the price? So we want to be including the price of things on websites. People get very annoyed if they get there and they're like, well, I would like to sign up, but I don't want to sign up if it's going to be $100 a class and I don't want to pay that much and I don't know how much it is. Pricing is a whole different topic, but I think it's important to include all of the details. So here are some other details that we might not think of. We might put down, say for instance, for me, I teach in Owen Sound, Ontario. Well, some people might not, if I just put Owen Sound, some people might not know Ontario. And if I have a real global audience, I might even want to put the country. So to be very specific of where the class is. Same with if we have online classes.
And also your time zone that you're in that case, because I work with a lot of people overseas. Like I actually was messaging a guy the other night and it was 1 a.m. in the morning. And I had stayed up really late that night. And I was like, God, I'm getting ready to go to bed.
Right.
And he's like, well, it's like 9:30 my time. And I'm like, yeah, it's not 9:30 my time.
Exactly. It's time zones really plays in when we have, online offerings in whatever capacity, and say we're having a live class or a pre-recorded class, then we want to let people know if it's at a specific time. So that's sort of your offerings, and that can look like so many different things. Like yoga teachers have retreats, workshops, classes. Classes could either be registered sessions or drop-ins. We want to make it as clear as possible. And right then we want to start saying, who do I want showing up to this class? Like, what are they dealing with and why are they wanting to come to class? We want that to be in the very short description. And it needs to be easy to sign up. So I would even invite some non-yoga friends to read it over. I love, my VA helps a lot of people with websites, so that she's a virtual assistant. And she doesn't go to yoga, and she mostly works with yoga teachers. She'll call me and say like, what does this mean? And I'll say to her, this is really important that you pass this along to your person that you're working for, because if you don't know what it is and you deal with so many yoga teachers, the average student also doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, I see like new Sanskrit or everything. Whenever I use Sanskrit, I always will write out what it means. I assume that people don't know it. And I found as a tech writer, because I've worked professionally as a technical writer for many years, and you would think like in the world that I work in with engineering that, oh, these engineers, they're all like, oh, I'm writing about right now a course on RFID. So you think, oh, all of these engineers that are taking this course, they all know about RFID. But they don't. Like, people are just really in their lane. And so I've learned that if I don't, I have to write everything out and assume that people don't know. And the only thing that I'll make a point to use a buzzword about is if it would kind of make it sound like I really didn't know the industry. Like, for example, namaste is something that is just so popular that I think pretty much everybody knows it at this point. And so, you could say what it means, but you also could use it on your site and it would make people feel like they were a little inside knowledge there. But I'm very careful about using buzzwords.
Yeah, that is so true. Like we can get caught up in those even English words. So Sanskrit's a great example in terms of like, say, even vinyasa flow. Almost every yoga teacher knows what that means, but a lot of yoga students would not know what that means. But we also tend to overuse some words, like I use them too. So when we use words like this class will resonate, or if I started talking about the 8 limbs of yoga, I mean, I want to give something that it's so simple that anyone reading it could think, is this for me or is this not for me? In that short description. We can go on and expand somewhere else, but in that short description, we want to have that there. So a great example of how I learned this the hard way, the really long way, was even in terms of gentle yoga. Like I offered a gentle yoga class, and at one point it was all levels gentle yoga. So it was like anyone could go, and everyone asked me questions over and over again. Is this class for me? And I'm thinking, yes, it's right there. It's all levels, gentle. Or I had an all levels class on its own that wasn't gentle. And I felt like this was really, like I'd laid it out. In my mind, yeah. I had.
How do you not get this? All levels.
So I worked and worked on my wording over the years. One of my classes, I switched to be gentle yoga for hips and shoulders. And boom, like my class size doubled right away. Just the registration went right up. And so what it was is someone was looking at that saying, I need yoga and I have either hip pain or shoulder pain. So I was addressing their struggle, even though I wasn't consciously doing this as a marketing strategy. But that is the first thing, is our yoga students are typically coming to class when something is physically or emotionally bothering them. So I address that right away in that class. Then move along a little bit further. I actually was teaching yoga for pelvic health, but I didn't want to label it as that. I was still calling it gentle yoga for hips and shoulders, and I was afraid to put it out there. I thought, if I call it yoga for pelvic health, I'm going to turn a bunch of people off. And that's the exact opposite of what happened. So I was super passionate about pelvic health. This was my niche. And once I finally embraced that, then my class numbers went up again. And to the point now where that registered session is full every time. And that's what I specialize in. I'm getting excited about this because there are a lot of yoga teachers that challenge me on this. And I really appreciate their foundation, where they're coming from, where they say it's all yoga. Great. But if you are speaking to everyone, you are speaking to no one. It is a big thing that this is a misconception that if we say it's all levels and it's for everyone, you'd think more people would show up, but that's the opposite of what happens.
The audience isn't hearing themselves in it. They're just saying, okay, it's something generic. It's not specific for me. And you also brought up this issue about really needing to talk to people about the things they're concerned about. And one of the things that we talked, briefly about the fact that people don't really understand learning and how it works. And you cannot talk to people about things that they're not ready to learn yet.
Yes.
So in learning, when there's different levels of learning, and it's all been studied. This is not like me, just some theory. This is instructional design, which has been studied for many, many years, the best way to teach people. And you cannot take a beginner up to the level of a teacher, which is why rote beginners shouldn't go into teacher training. You can't take a rote beginner up 5 levels. You have to take people from where they're at to the next stage of learning. And so if you imagine somebody who's hitting your website, where is their level of awareness about yoga? And when people come to me, they're usually like, oh, I'm interested in flexibility. I'm interested in getting fit, because their awareness of yoga is pretty limited by what's out in the popular culture if they've never taken yoga before. And so I talk about fitness and flexibility, even though that's not really 100% what I teach. It's what they're coming looking for. And I do address it. It's not like I'm lying. It's not like I'm saying, oh no, I'm not going to, like come for flexibility. And then I don't teach flexibility. That's what I talk about at first, because that's what they need to talk about at first. So.
This is such a great awareness. We have an intake form at our studio, and that's what people are checking off. What do you want out of this class or this series? And that's always flexibility. And like you said, fitness, I want some kind of activity. So I think we need to come to terms with exactly what you said, and also know that we're not being like a slimy salesperson where we're addressing what people are needing when we're including it. So like you said, someone might sign up for flexibility. And even last night I was telling some students in a class of mine, now we're going to work on our upper thoracic and gaining some flexibility there, because it's not a bad thing to work on that, getting a little more mobility, a little more open in the upper thoracic. What we don't want to do is probably take that same down to the lumbar spine. We don't really need it there. So we worked and we talked about fixing the lumbar and then working just with the thoracic. Yeah. So the flexibility piece was there.
Yeah. I think that you have to be honest about what you're doing, that you can't, you're not, but you also have to be aware that people, the way they're thinking about it is really different from the way you think about it as a yoga teacher. And it just the fact that maybe eventually you want people who are very spiritually focused, they're probably, as beginners, that's probably not exactly where they're at.
Exactly.
And there's not that many people who come, as beginners and say like, oh, I want to learn how to meditate and have this totally spiritual experience. So, they're usually, like you said, looking to solve a problem. They have some kind of ache or pain, or they're wanting to improve their flexibility or their balance. A lot of older people looking to improve balance. And so you need to talk about, I think, what they're interested in.
Yeah. So that's where exactly. And that's where the naming on your website, those class names, like I would ask some friends and then see if the description makes sense, if it speaks to people, or is it just kind of like you're still sitting there wondering, I wonder what would this class entail? As yoga teachers, we can get pretty poetic about our words. And if you can dial that back a little bit, bring it back to simple, basically, what am I going to get out of this class? That's what you want to answer for your ideal yoga student.
So I have a couple of questions, and then I want to ask about a couple of other pages that I think should be on a website, and I want to ask you about it. So one of them is, I've seen this trend toward these very long sales pages. Like people have a workshop, and then it's like, 5 yards long. This website goes on and on. I asked someone about it, and they told me that there's some research that shows that there's certain people who really want like every detail about your, exactly what you're offering, and that they will read all of that stuff. I personally hit those sites, and I think they're crazy, but I see it a lot. So are they effective? What do you think about this sort of long form? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like,
I know exactly what you mean. Where there's like a button,
here's everything you're going to get and everything that we're going to do and exactly the location, and it goes on and on and on and on. And I just think it's crazy. But
for me personally, and I can only speak personally because I have no data on this, like I don't know the science behind it. And that's a really great point, that for the detail-oriented person, then for sure you'd want all of the information there. And I guess what it enables is, what I've seen is there's some small information. There's usually pictures with that, and then there's a button. And so you could sign up or you could keep reading. I think that's their philosophy. But when I see one of those pages, I shut down, because I'm like, this is a sales page. Like this is too much. And I usually go off of it then. I've never actually
it feels salesy
to me, but I don't know. It'd be great to see. Basically what you'd need is sort of the same group of people with two different pages like that. Like you'd need to really break it down scientifically. I don't know if that's done already. And so I think this brings a really great point, is What do you want in a website? When you go to a website, like I wouldn't put one of those pages on my website because I don't respond to it. So I would play around with what do you respond to, because you're going to attract students who are similar to you and your likes. And it's okay if then here's a great indicator if you don't have enough information on there, is if people start asking you questions. Like you think you have all of the information down, but then they send you an email. This happens to me all the time.
What is your website, by the way, so we can see a nice one?
This is like a lot of pressure. So I have 3 websites that I do. The connectedyogateacher.com is the one for yoga teachers. And then my personal yoga is under shannoncrow.com. It needs updated. And so does mamanurture.ca. That's MAMA nurture.ca. That's the prenatal yoga school. It definitely needs updated. So this is a whole other topic that websites are never done. So it's never like, I made this great website and now I just sit back and watch people contact me and sign up. They always need updated. Now, I've passed over the updating of my plugins to my VA, and she just goes in every month and does that. And I don't have to think about it. I love it. And she does it because she doesn't get caught up in like, oh, right, there's this other thing I wanted to put on the site. And then all of a sudden a whole day has gone by. So she's just going in, updating the plugins, then it's done. You said that you were going to ask me a couple other questions, or did you want me to go on?
Yeah, so then I want to ask about the About page. Now, I know that the page that's about you is usually the most visited page on a website, so you should always have that page. And I'm curious what you think people should put, because I've seen people kind of put like, here's all my training and all of that. And my feeling is that a lot of people really don't know what that means or don't care that much about your training. And so that's always tempting to try to give my credentials and say, to show that I really am, capable of training you. But it seems like that's not really, my impression is that's not really what people are that interested in reading.
No, it isn't. So to be quite honest, I think the About Me page is one of the hardest. So the home page and the About Me page, and the About Me page might even be harder than the home page for some people. So basically you come back to, so we first did the contact page, and the point is that people can contact you. It's going to sound really elementary, but the next one was your offerings. And the point is that people can look, see what they want to sign up for. So the point is that they sign up. What is the point of the About Me page? I think that's where we get confused. So you were saying the trainings, and I see that everywhere. If you're going to list your trainings, what do you want people to do? Do you want them to sign up for those trainings? Because that would be something, if those trainings are right at the top, do you want them to just be wowed by your intense training that you've done? Still, that's not really a take action that we want to happen. What do we want them to do when they get to the page? We actually want them to sign up for our offerings. So how can we get them to do that? We need to speak to them about the offerings. And generally, the best way to do this is through story, and to keep it not too wordy. So we just don't want this huge page of like all words about us. We still want a picture on an About Me page. And a picture of us doing yoga or teaching yoga might help to convey our offering right then. And then somewhere in there, how it is that we use yoga. Like, how has it helped us in the same way that we want to help other people? So for example, if you're a yoga teacher who teaches restorative yoga, and you were like a stressed out mom or a stressed out CEO of a company, and then you found yoga and you found calm in that, and that's why you share restorative yoga now, that's a great thing to put in your About Me page. I also think for yoga teachers, it helps if we write in first person. And I've flip-flopped on this, third person or first person, but it's kind of weird if we go to, and we know it's just one person as a yoga teacher, and we go to that About Me page, and then it's like Shannon Crow, da 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 da.
I also love, I used to do this where I would have like a website and it'd be like, at Heart Mind Yoga, we believe blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's really just me, you know, but it was like, I guess it was because I had this corporate background where I kind of want to, you know, talk about like, as if I were this big company, even though like really it was just me.
Yeah. And I think we went through it. Like, I know I've done that on every website I've had. It might even still be there. This isn't effective though. I certainly wouldn't tell yoga teachers to do that now. So it's more like writing how you would speak. And if that's hard for you, you could press record on your phone and imagine that you're telling someone about your story and why you offer what you do. So it's kind of like, who is your ideal yoga student? To define them is really part of this About Me page. How do you help them is the next piece of that. So who are they? What's their struggle? And how are you helping them? There's sort of 3 parts there. Once you've answered that, you need to thread that in through your About Me page. So you can list your trainings at the bottom. I have mine there because it helps me to track. So it's like my own personal thing. It also helps me to link back to schools or teachers that I've studied with in case other people want to check those out.
I'm kind of getting to this point where I have a tendency to want to validate myself through my training. And what I'm discovering is that I'm at a point where I need to stop doing that. And I want to tell people like, look, I trained with all these great teachers. I trained with Don Afari. I studied with Eric Schiffman. I assisted him at workshops. And I'm starting to realize like, I just need to stop talking about that because at this point, I'm the story. And it's very difficult to come to terms with that. It's much easier to kind of say like, I study with a great teacher and that's why you should study with me, rather than like, I'm a great teacher and that's why you should study with me.
It's so true. We hold on to trainings. Let me back this even up further and let me just speak for me. I have taken trainings when I feel imposter syndrome kick in. So when I feel like, who am I to teach that? Or I don't know enough to teach that. Then I was turning to a teacher training. Now I turn to teacher trainings if I'm like, ooh, I want to learn more about this because it will serve the existing students I have. Like it will pay off. I can take that training and then it will generate income for me. Before I was signing up for teacher trainings because I was feeling like I'm not good enough, basically. So I think that's important. And also I see it in the About Me. I'll see teachers list off like their whole yoga journey, which quite frankly, it's like, who has time to sit and read that? Take, for instance, if you are someone like me, so I'm a podcaster and I do consulting. So I'm sitting a lot at a computer. So anyone with an office job, if I saw a yoga class, the same teacher wrote 2 About Me pages, and one was like, I took all of this training and all of these different modalities. Like, well, that's cool. But imagine I don't even understand yoga. So that's all like, just, I don't even know what they're talking about.
Might as well be great to you.
Yeah. But on the other hand, if that same teacher turned around and said, I help people who are feeling tension in their body from sitting all day, I'd be like, that's the class for me. And that's really all that has to be on that About Me page. It's a bit of an extended of what's on the homepage. So
what do you think about having a video there?
Oh, I think that's a great idea. And if you're uncomfortable with video, know that you could do it and then just do it like, I don't care. Please do it like that. I've worked with so many yoga teachers who say, I'm too old, I'm too large, I don't like my shape, I don't have nice clothes, I don't have good lighting. That's fine. You can improve the lighting. I don't know what to say. I get nervous. Let me tell you that people connect to yoga teachers because of who they are, because they're showing up. Like, I love it when I can see myself in someone who's in a video. What I don't connect to is someone who looks super polished. It's very hard to connect to that person if they look perfect.
Yes. Well, I think I do teach a course on how to get started with YouTube, and it's basically, most of it is just about performing on video, because I produce video and I have a lot of people, they, the issue of how you actually perform on video, I watch it all the time. I work with people all the time. They get on camera and you think they have everything it takes to be great on camera. They're beautiful, all this stuff. And they're like a deer in the headlights. It is, people do not understand what a skill the Kardashians have to show up on camera like that every time. It's great. You can do one take and it'll be good. But that's for sure when your dog will come in the room and,
right.
distract you, or the mailman will come. And then by the third take, you're wiped out. And so it's a big skill to actually, be on camera and bring that energy and be yourself and not be fake. I think all of this, I hear this thread through this whole conversation, which is that we tend to mimic things that we've seen. And a lot of the things that we've seen are kind of salesy. And I think it's very difficult as yoga teachers to figure out how to do this kind of more sophisticated marketing where we're really just showing up as ourselves. We talk about used car salesmen. That's a sales situation where you walk in the door, they have one chance to sell you. And that's why they do those high pressure sales techniques. And that's not what happens with yoga. I mean, it's not that kind of thing where somebody thinks about it. They might visit your website several times before they show up to the class.
Yeah. And it's a very different thing. Like if you were selling used cars and they were great cars, you could sell them with real confidence. But here we are, we're selling honestly, there was just a study released in Canada where 70% of people are dealing with high anxiety. So every yoga teacher has the tools to help someone with high anxiety or pain in their body or a disconnect, mind and body. Like even the things that you were saying, the flexibility and the fitness. So when I do my yoga practice in the morning, which doesn't really look like a physical practice, I just feel better. So I might be more apt to go for a walk. So the benefits of yoga play out in a very subtle but very profound way. And if we're not sharing them, we're doing a disservice to people. It's like we're hogging them. So that might help with the salesy part. I think the other thing is you want to make sure that your message is consistent. So say you teach restorative yoga, you've got your write-up on your About Me page, and it's all, this is how restorative yoga helped me. But in your image, you have yourself in like a wheel pose or handstand, which is really impressive. But you have to ask yourself, is that speaking to my ideal yoga student?
I don't do the spaghetti poses on websites. It's, I do something that shows that I do teach yoga. I think, honestly, if people do a photo shoot, which you can just get your iPhone out and get a friend out, put on some makeup or, comb your hair and get outside in some yoga clothes. But I think one shot every yoga teacher should have is the prayer hands. And I know it's super sort of stereotypical, but it instantly reads yoga, and you're getting a face shot. I mean, that's a great picture to have. But I just don't do those. It's a big turnoff to people if they see wheel pose, a full back bend. Most people can't even think of attempting that. And they see that and they're like, that's not me. But if you're sitting there and you're just in a seated position or you're doing something that clearly says yoga to people, that's really all it needs to say. It doesn't, you don't need to show, unless your audience is people who, you're an Ashtanga yoga teacher or something, and you want to attract that crowd that wants to do pretzel poses.
Exactly. I think the other thing with the video that you had mentioned, so this actually makes me think that I probably should get to putting a a video on my About Me page for the Connected Yoga Teacher because I'm more comfortable now. So we have a few podcasts on there. One is about doing live video or doing more professional videos. And
yeah, you
honestly,
just did one with Kira Sloan,
yeah.
and she's great. Yeah.
So there are some resources there that you can tap into for sure. But honestly, it's just like showing up and trying it. So I feel more comfortable now, but I did a Facebook Live show, we're 80 some episodes into the podcast, and I just feel more comfortable now. I still get nervous. I will still get nervous. But one thing that I would use for sure is this new technique I have when I do online coursework is to put a piece of paper near your computer so that it's still, or your, whatever is, like say if you have a webcam or you have an actual camera and take the video. Actually, a phone is better than your computer. So, and if you flip it around, it's the phone that faces away from your screen is better than the phone or the camera
The
that's
selfie.
The selfie. Thank you. So I'm going to use a webcam. It's a Logitech for a course. I just got that. I'm pretty excited about that. And then I'm going to have my notes near it so that it looks like I'm looking at the camera, but I'm going to splice it. So looking away, reading the notes, and then looking back and saying it, and then cut out all of those pieces where I'm looking away or I fumble over my words, and then cut it together, and it'll be like you just have to keep doing the retakes, like say the sentence and then try. I learned that at Yoga Anytime. That is how we put together a lot of the parts where I'm talking to the camera.
Yeah, that's what we do. And I do a lot of video for corporate as well. We actually will have like a PowerPoint in front of people on a monitor so that they're looking right at the camera, but they have the shot right above them. It's real difficult to talk to camera. I've tried to do it. And even though like I'm pretty comfortable on camera, like talking directly to camera about myself is very, very difficult. It is. I've done like multiple takes. And I'm like, oh, this is the hardest thing ever. So mainly I think people I would just encourage people it's still worth it to do it and keep going and try it. Just know you're going to have a lot of film on the cutting room floor, so to speak.
Exactly.
And then, so to start to wrap this up, I want to get that final page that you said to wait till the end to do, which is
the home page.
So
yeah.
Finally, we get to the most important page, the first page.
And if you get stuck on the About Me page, I did a podcast episode where I coached someone through creating an About Me page, and then I actually put together some more resources. So if you get stuck on that one, if it feels like today's wasn't enough, I can send the link for that. So the homepage, we want to keep it very clean and very simple. Think of a yoga studio. If you walked into the yoga studio and there were bolsters and blocks all over in a disarray, it would just be too much. We like things very organized and structured so we can see right away, okay, that's what I need and that's what I like. Here's where this is. So your homepage is kind of like redirecting to all of those things. It could be that we look at where we can see more about you as a yoga teacher. So you might have a photo there and meet Shannon or whatever it says there. You can see that. Actually, I'm very happy with my shannoncrow.com, the homepage. And the way I designed that is I found a homepage that I liked in a completely different industry and basically said, how can I translate that into my own? So I want people just to see, okay, I'm a yoga teacher and here are the classes that I teach.
I think that's a good point too, steal other people's work. And, obviously you're not going to just literally steal it, but if you see other things that you like, start to notice other websites that you like.
Yeah. And so what I did is I drew that one out on paper. I wanted my logo and I drew out what the menu tabs would be. I think it's important to not get too many. Some people, the jury's out on this, whether we should have a drop down or not. You need to figure out, say if you have yoga offerings.
It depends on how much content you have, but I'm a big believer that if you're sort of just have a site that's facing for random people. Let's say, for example, you have lots of videos related to pelvic health to support your students. You can still have those on your website, but people won't be able to find them unless they're your customers, and you can give them like a unique login or a link. You don't need to, just because you have content there for people, not everybody needs to find it.
Exactly.
And I think you need to think about like who has the time to spend an hour on your website watching all your videos and
A great example is I was working with someone who had all kinds of articles, and she wanted to post on there like hundreds of articles or something. And I think for me, that's overwhelming. I want to bring one more thing in for the yoga teachers that I think is not always addressed. When we talk about having a blog, for me, a blog is like if you want to share your online journal. It's like your diary of what's going on in your life. So maybe you say, I woke up and I did my yoga, and then I made this smoothie, and my kids are doing this today. To me, that's a blog. But I know so many yoga teachers who are writing amazing articles and calling it a blog. So if you want to switch and become an expert in something, you need to switch to calling it articles or resources. I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think blogs have a place for sure. And we heard a lot about blogs. That's my personal take on it, that I feel like it should be articles. When we're giving information to people and they can use it, then I think it's an article.
I also think you can get those out there more effectively, like on Medium, or Quora has a blogging feature.
Yeah.
And then you can drive people to your website and get them into your courses, get them into your workshops. And I think it's more effective when it's somewhere, because one thing that I told you before we started, I used to be a website designer, and all these people would think like the world's going to be to pass my door now that I have a web presence. But it's really difficult to beat big websites in search engine traffic. So Medium will beat your little blog every day of the week, because they're probably uploading more articles in 1 hour than you could generate in your whole lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the search engines are looking for. So unless somebody's very specifically looking for you, they're probably not going to find your website, whereas they might stumble across it on Medium or on, get published in Elephant Journal. I think it's pretty easy to get published there.
Yeah. And with that, I'm pretty sure the rules around Medium are that you can publish it there and on your website. You can correct me if that's not right.
I'm not sure. I haven't done it though. So
it's really important that if you are going to write for other public, like I wrote for a publication and I was not allowed to share that on my site. I could share a little blurb and then link to that article. And I did that in my emails on my website. But if you want to know the rules around, can I publish this on my site as well as the other one? There was one other point that I wanted to add to this, the writing articles. It might come back to me. It's gone. Oh, I know. This consistency of, so say you decide that you want to put content on your website. It's very important to figure out what kind of content you actually want to create on a consistent basis. So if you love doing video, then you would share video. If you are a teacher who loves to share text and you don't want to be on video at all, that would be what you would share. Or maybe you don't even want to. Like you need to decide, did I want that business card site that shows where my classes are, when they are, all of that information is there, or do I want to have content? And it does help, like you said, with the search engine is looking for, so if someone types in restorative yoga, and you have a brand new yoga website and you don't have a lot of articles on restorative yoga, it's not going to show up high on the search. But if you consistently post about something, then it will start to show up more.
Yeah, definitely. I think that having some regular content, I think the place to start is that brochure online. I think if you don't have a website, you've never had one, do it like you're just writing a brochure and put it online. It's the easiest thing to understand how to do, and it'll get you started. And then you can always, it's like you said, they're never done. So it's not like you have to create it and then you could never ever make it better. It's like, start with the easy thing and then build, add that blog in, because it takes time to figure it all out. It's not like, it's not an easy thing to write about yourself.
No. And what always helps me to make content is to come back to, how can I help someone with this content? Like, what is the struggle that my audience is dealing with? And then how can I create something for them to help with this? So, yeah.
Second, because I had a sirens going over here.
Oh, you muted that.
But they're fading away a little bit. Shannon, you have a 5-day content challenge that I'd like our listeners and viewers to know about. So tell us a little bit about what that is.
So it's a free online virtual, you can sign up anytime. Basically, you will get, once you sign up for the 5-day content challenge, then you'll get an email every day just going through one tiny little action step to do to create content. And it starts at the why. Like, why are you creating content? I think that's super important to come back to that, to kind of wrap this up with the website. Why do you want to do this? And I encourage yoga teachers to please do this because you either want to generate profit in your business or you want to grow your business. Those are the two things that will enable you to stay around as a yoga teacher so you can help more people.
Yeah, I agree with that. And your podcast was a wonderful resource for people as well. You interview a lot of influencers, a lot of people who are speaking not only about the business side of yoga, but also about just what they're teaching. And I think it's a great resource. And you have a wonderful Facebook group, the Connected Yoga Teacher Group, which I participate in. It's very active. It's really a nice group, very supportive. Some of the groups on Facebook have a very different vibe, and I love the feeling there.
Thanks. Yeah, we work really hard at that. We have some good moderators, but overall, yoga teachers to see that, and then they continue that supportive vibe. Yeah, and you can find all of that, like the button for the group and the content challenge is all at the Connected Yoga. It's at the connectedyogateacher.com.
And we'll be putting links down below or up above, depending on where this is posted. We'll be posting it on Facebook, and we'll also be posting it on YouTube. So look for links down below to all of Shannon Crow's websites that she mentioned, her Facebook group, as well as to my group, the Sadhana community for yoga teachers and enthusiasts. I recommend you join that as well, please. And then also like this, share it, and comment. All of those things help more people to see the video, and then more people get to learn about our work. Thank you so much for coming, Shannon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.